slow down and enjoy the ride. Get to know yourself, get to know the people around you. Don't set ridiculously high expectations or measures of success that are totally irrelevant.
Welcome to another episode of Bigger Than the Hustle podcast. And now I've got my sixth or seventh guest over from Australia, Perth again. Like everyone seems to be in Perth, even though Australia is such a huge land. And she's honoured us to be a guest with us today, to share her light and share the way she experiences the world and the energy she has. So without further ado, I'm just going to introduce her. Hi, Amy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm really well. How are you?
Very well, very well.
Good. So I'm just going to hand over the microphone to you. If you could introduce yourself and what you're about, and then we can go into the conversation from there.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for having me on the podcast as well. A bit of background on myself. So my name is Amy Jacobson, and I specialize in emotional intelligence and human behavior. Always had a real fascination for the mind. And this has kind of followed me throughout my whole life, my whole career. But I did actually spend over 19 years in corporate world in insurance, funnily enough. But I think it was that time spent in there and working with so many different people and different customers in really highly emotional states that it become really evident to me that it's not really our technical skills that get us to the end result or the result that we're hoping for. The emotional intelligence side in every interaction with any other human is what determines and what influences the outcome and how we arrive there. So I spend my days now, I run my own business and I work with pretty much every industry, but I really specialize in that emotional intelligence within the workplace to get organizations and individuals really challenging and disrupting their mindsets and moving them away from thinking that, you know, the bottom line is the number one driver or your skill set and your IQ is the number one driver, and trying to get them to really balance it out and work on their emotional intelligence as well.
Well,
so that's pretty much me.
So what I really loved about what you just said there was that you deal with the mind. And anything to do with the mind, I'm a sucker for. I love anything to understand how we think, or how I think, should I say, and what triggers me and what, raises me up, what drops me down. All those kind of things are so interesting to me. And I know a lot of people that listen to this, they're in that space as well. They think about this all the time. Now, you mentioned about emotional intelligence over IQ. So, intelligence in the, if you say the school box system type in terms of the system that we've all been through, this square system, there's so much debate whether that's still the right methodology to bring young children through. But that's actually an actual day conversation for another time. So we're not going to deal with that right now. But
we could talk for months on that.
Exactly, months and months, years on that one. Yes. But if we talk about the emotional intelligence side of it, now, what's the importance of emotional intelligence over standards or brain intelligence? And secondly, how can we hone our skills more to become more emotionally intelligent, especially within a working environment or an entrepreneurial type environment?
Okay, so the first part of your question around, the real difference between your IQ and your EQ or your EI. So I truly believe that it's a balance. There is not one that is more important than the other. They both are something that all of us have, and we need to work out that balance. But your main difference between them is your IQ is really what you know. So it's all of the technical things that you learn. It is the skill-based things that you learn. It is the intelligence side, the intellect side. So it's really what people refer to as your smarts. So anything that you're kind of learning through a textbook or through a program or through a course or anything like that, that relates to formulas or processes or external measures, that's really where you're building your IQ. So as you mentioned, a lot of the stuff we learn through school, through university, if you start a new job, you would, learn on the job how to do the system and how to actually do the hands-on work, or what to say when you pick up the phone, or what products, or your product knowledge. That is all IQ. Now, the difference between EQ or EI is that this actually comes to how we deliver our IQ. So the easiest reference that I use is I say, emotional intelligence is not about what you know and what you do. IQ is about that. Emotional intelligence is about how and why you do it. So if I put it into the workplace, one of the easiest examples to talk about is that we've all pretty much worked at some point in time with somebody who was really technically amazing at their job. Like they were the expert, they were the go-to person, they knew every answer to everything. But sometimes you come across those people and they're just not the nicest people to work with. Like they're amazing at their technical knowledge, but their communication is poor, or, the way that they make other people feel is not great. This is a perfect example of how you can have really high IQ, yet your emotional intelligence is lacking. Your emotional intelligence is how you communicate with other people. It is about how you think of yourself. It's about what actually makes you tick. So what are your values and your beliefs that are actually driving you to every decision that you make? What is your definition of success? What is, how do you control your emotions and actually know how to manage your reaction in different situations? And how do you actually even push your boundaries and your barriers to face some of your greatest fears? It's how we make other people feel as well. So when we're interacting, it could even be a 2-second interaction or a lifetime interaction. It's how we make other people feel. And it's also understanding why people are different to us and why, what makes them tick in reverse to what makes us tick. But that communication is, once we really understand all of that about what makes us tick and what makes other people tick, it's how we deliver it, what words we choose to use, the tone, the body language, everything in communication. In this day and age, it is what you type on social media, the words that you choose to use, how you're making people feel through that communication, and then how driven and motivated you are as well. So balancing it out. So emotional intelligence really comes down to 5 key concepts, and they've been coined for quite a while now, mostly by the most common one is Daniel Goleman, and he defines it as self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, social skills, or communication and motivation. For me, I like to define it a little bit more simple than that, in language that we actually understand and in actionable items as well. So I like to say own it, like own who you are and the decisions that you make, face it, face the way that you respond, face your greatest fears, feel it, feel how other people are feeling and understand them, ask it, which is your communication side, and drive it, and that's your motivation. Mm-hmm. So emotional intelligence is huge, but I always say if you're human, then you are relying on your emotional intelligence every second of the day, and it determines your outcome every time.
Yeah, and it's interesting how when you talked about emotional intelligence, the way it links to human behavior, because that's really important, isn't it? It's understanding that even though you have the intelligence, how do you come into the world and use that skill set to then interact with other human beings, whether that be colleagues, whether that be personal, whether that be family, friends, etc. And I think it's from what you've just mentioned there, although I know we talked about it from a work situation, it's so important even in a personal situation, isn't it? It's, our social circles and our family, there's times within our own families where there's so much history or baggage if it's negative. And then you can work through that if you have a strong EQ. I know that. And then there's other people who just get stuck in their ways and just say, actually, I don't want to deal with it. So I think it's really relevant in both situations. Right now, from a personal situation, so whether it be, like I said, family, friends, etc., are there times where you've seen your knowledge used in a way which has really helped a situation, whether that be friendships or family?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. Like emotional intelligence is attached to humans. So it doesn't matter whether you're in the workplace, whether you're at home, if you are interacting or if you're a human, it's gonna be applicable. Most of us understand and we know, and it's more obvious that when we're outside of work that our EI and our relationships are, we get them, we're more aware of them. But it's usually, and it's why I focus in the workplace, is because we tend to forget all of that when we walk into work and we get really focused. But yes, definitely. So my latest book that's out at the moment, which is Emotional Intelligence, a simple and actionable guide, that was actually written for the workplace. Yet I know the first time I handed it over to the publishers and they read through it and they said, Amy, this is for everyone. Even though you've come at it from a workplace point of view, it's for everyone, and people take it away. And I noticed that for people coming out of my sessions, the amount of people that have come up to me and said, you've really helped me at work, but wow, you've changed my life at home. And the difference is because the communication that we use with our family and our friends, they usually bear the brunt of our emotions. So a lot of the time when we walk into the workplace, we can put on a mask. We can, we might change our behaviors slightly in a different environment. When we're at home, our emotions are so much more exposed. So usually however we're feeling, our partner, whether husband, wife, family member, whoever it is, they know exactly how we're feeling. And we kind of let loose as well. We kind of take down our walls, we take down our barriers, and we are more exposed. And we also tend to be thinking more internally about ourselves when we're in those situations. So I know myself, I teach this kind of stuff, and there are still times, just because I teach it, it doesn't make me emotionally intelligent. It doesn't make anyone emotionally intelligent. It gives us the tools to be able to apply to situations to respond in an emotionally intelligent way. So there are times when I'll come home from being at work all day and I'm around the kids. I've got a 14 and a 12-year-old and my husband, and I will snap, or, the kids will say something and I'll respond. And there are times when my 14-year-old daughter has turned around to me and said, Mum, that wasn't very emotionally intelligent. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. Clearly she knows too much these days, but she's right. And I think, when we're looking at that emotional intelligence, the greatest advice and tip that I could give to people when it comes to EI and being around family and friends is to really take the opportunity to pause more, to slow down our world. We are so hectic and we are so rushed that a lot of the time we're living in our conscious mind and we don't think before we speak. The words just come out so fast from our conscious mind that our subconscious mind doesn't get the chance to put the filter on. So I would encourage people to slow down and take a pause. But my greatest tip for adults too is also ask the question why more often. Like we're at kids. Like if anyone out there that's got kids, at some point in time as a parent, we've been driven crazy by those questions where our kids come out and say, well, why? And we're like, stop asking why. But I think this world would be a much better place if adults asked why more often. If we asked our family why they were feeling a certain way, or why this is happening, or they asked themselves, why does this matter so much? Why am I getting so worked up about it? Or why am I not happy? Then that's when we really tap into our emotional intelligence and we start to understand the subconscious mind and what we're capable of.
Why is such an important question. It's, just from you speaking there, it's the thing of judgment which came to my mind. Whereas, you can stand in your shoes and judge someone else for something they're doing. But if you walked every day in their shoes, you'd probably make the same decisions. So rather than you standing on your high horse and make a decision, I think just asking the question, why did you do that, or why do you think that way? And just understanding and listening to the response, you may understand where they're coming from and understand what they're about, right? Rather than having such a negative barrier towards it. Now,
so true. And I was going to say, very much in our mind, right? Like our mind is driven by the fact that we like to be right, but there's this acceptance in our own mind that we're human, we make mistakes. Yet that acceptance does not often extend past us to other people. So our expectations of other people is that they don't make mistakes, that they should know what to do. They should know how to deliver. They should know what to say or what to be. But then when it comes to our errors, we're like, well, I'm only human. Like, of course I'm going to make errors. So it is quite funny, and why is a great question to ask them.
And it allows us to feel human again, right? So when we say, actually, I don't know, that generally is the truth, isn't it? A lot of times, even with my kids, a lot of time I say, I don't know. That I know I'm meant to be the all-knowing, all dad. I know everything. But sometimes I don't know. And it's so freeing when we can just let go of that need to feel right all the time and know everything. And then actually don't put any of our self-worth based on the knowledge of actually we know everything. Because I think the more we're in the mindset of learning and think going into any situation saying, what am I going to learn from this? I think we can just grow so much more rather than being in that fixed mindset of, actually, I know so much about this. Because I think two things happen there, which is, first of all, you get quite boring because you just keep repeating the same things. But also, it's like, it makes life disinteresting when there's no more learning. I mean, I've always said I'd rather be the student than the teacher in all situations. Always about learning and picking up something new. And that's what I love about these conversations on the podcast. Well, they're talking to someone about something different all the time, and it just opens my mind to so much. So I think I get more out of it than anyone else. So
I say the same thing. Like, all of the clients that I work with, all of the people that I work with, I always say to them, I walk away learning so much from them as well. Just being around other people, you're learning. And you know what? There are some situations when you're learning what not to do. And that's okay. I hear people say, I could never learn from this leader. I could never learn from my parents or this person. I don't agree with them. But I always say, well, you are learning, because sometimes you'll learn what you don't want to be or what you don't want to do. And that is still learning. There's so much to do there. And life would be really boring if we weren't learning anymore.
And I think that exactly what you said there, which was, you learn so much more in terms of when you say, actually, I know I don't want to do that because I've learned that I've done it one way. I don't want to do that anymore. And I think that's such a brilliant space to be in, when you can let certain things go rather than wanting to do everything. That actually, I've done that, and maybe someone else might be better doing that. It's like me and tiling. So I went to tile. Me and my dad tiled our kitchen and our utility. And I said, yeah, give it a go. I like learning new things. Let's give it a try. After 3 days of tiling that, two things happened. First of all, said, now I don't mind paying someone else ever to do this again, because I really did not enjoy that. And secondly, is when you do something for a certain period of time and you get a certain level of pride that actually, I achieved that and I did that. I look at my floor still today and think, I don't care how I laid that. I just didn't enjoy it at all. So there's no pride and there's nothing that I learned from it. So I know for a fact that I'll never do tiling again. And I'm glad I can say that comfortably.
You learn an appreciation for tiling. That's what you learn.
100%, exactly. Now, if we go back to something you mentioned in your intro, you mentioned that you were working for corporates and you set up your own business in this space. Can we talk about that time, the time between leaving corporate and setting up business? Because a lot of people listen to that, or whether they're entrepreneurs or thinking about starting their own business. What mindset were you in when that was going on? And was it a decision you made on your own, or was there other factors that were at play when that happened?
Sure. So I never had any intention to run my own business. So I've never been an entrepreneur. I love corporate world. I really do, which is why I still work a lot with them. So there was never, ever a desire to run my own business or be my own boss. But I was working towards, as I said, I worked 19 years in there, and I was constantly working towards something that I never really felt like I was finding. I was just lost. On that learning thing, a lot of my leaders would say to me, Amy, what is it that you want to do? Where do you want to end up in the business? And my answer was always, I don't know, just as long as I'm being challenged and learning. So I did hop around quite a bit in different parts of the business, which was amazing because I got to learn so much about running a business, which really helped. And I also got to learn so much from different people. But there came a time when what I had defined as success in my mind way back in my teenage years was a certain pay packet, a certain job title, the dream, paying off your mortgage, having your own home, living life good. To me, I defined that success. And I started to hit all of those measures I hit a lot of my measures of success within, an 18-month time period. And it was like an absolute wake-up call to me that said, I've been working my life to these points. I've achieved them and nothing's changed. What do I do now? Like, what's next? And for me, I had a lot of conversations with my husband saying, like, I'm not satisfied. Is this truly it? Is this all there is to life? Is this what I'm supposed to do for the rest of my years? And at that point, I really struggled. So then I started to go out to people around me, people that had either thanked me for working with them or had, said, you've made such an impact on my life. And I'd say, okay, tell me, what is it? What is exactly that I did? So it took me a while to work out. Once I worked out that it was emotional intelligence, starting a business was the only way to fulfill or follow my passion. So I actually looked out into the workplace first to see whether I could join a company as an employee. But unfortunately, on paper, my resume said that I was in high-level executive roles, but it didn't say anything about emotional intelligence or human behavior. And they're like, well, no, you've got to go and do all your studies. So I started my business purely out of it was the only way for me to do what I wanted to do. And I wanted to reach and help so many more people than just the insurance world. So it was the only option for me. And I was quite comfortable to take the risk. I think that the reason why I was comfortable to take the risk is because our lives were in a certain place. So, financially, it was safe for us to take that risk. And my husband works in a quite, a great job as well in management. So there wasn't the pressure of, okay, if you do this, you must reach this point or have this by a certain time, which I think makes a huge difference because I was able to take more risks in those early days than maybe I would have if I was relying heavily on a certain amount of income coming in. So was it easy? Like, no. I think if anybody says, oh, setting up a business is easy, and I hear so many people out there saying, within 6 months, I'm six-figure business. And my best words of advice to everyone out there is don't listen to the noise, because the noise is not always the truth, and comparison is a killer. And I think that, when you head into that world of running your own business, remembering what lane you're in is so important. And also, like, I love a good metaphor too. Like, when you look at a book, like, you read those quotes all the time that say, some people are already at chapter 58. You're at chapter 1. Like, remember the chapter that you're at. So for me, starting the business was an amazing feeling. It was tough going, and it's like an absolute roller coaster ride. Coming out of corporate world really set me up to run a business because I knew how to run a decent sized department or team. So I kind of had that bit of background, which made it a lot more helpful. It put a lot of structure to my business, a lot of structure to my business plan. And I'm still very, very organized when it comes to my business plan and what I'm aiming for. So it definitely helped. But God, it's exciting, but it is truly a roller coaster. You highest of highs and the lowest of lows.
100%. Like, from what you said there's so many things that I agree with being this far on the journey. So I set my business, from university, I worked for 6 months in corporate. And the only thing that I loved everything about it in terms of people, in terms of the work, etc. I just didn't like the politics, about how you have to get on with certain people. And, I know EQ falls into that. But I think as a 24-year-old hot start, I was like, no, I don't want to do this. My idea was you work hard and you progress. And if you don't work hard, then you don't. So anyway, so I left that and I set my business at 24 with £500 in my pocket and then sort of built from there. So I would say I'm unemployable, because I know I'm the most annoying person to work with. But anyway, yeah. 21 years down the line, and looking back now, exactly what you said there. I think it's such a good space to be in when you're not financially under pressure. When I moved back to set up my business, I moved back into my parents' house. So I had no overheads, no costs, etc. So I could make decisions rationally as opposed to flapping around, searching for air and grasping at any, type of business that would come along. Secondly, I think it gives you time and space to think about what you want, and any clients that you take on, they're the ones that you do want. I know, you learn over time and you grow as a person, and maybe the first clients that you took on are not going to be the clients you take on, 5 years down the line, because you've grown your skills, your knowledge, experience, etc. But you have to start there. You have to start somewhere, right? And and then you look back, it's almost cringy, isn't it? Like, you see some of the people that you work with, and no disrespect to them. It's just that you are on the same level at that point. And as you've grown, people have grown with you. And another thing about knowing the comparison thing. So again, people ask me about certain things. But I'm 21 years down the line. I can see things that in perspective. And I will tell you straight away, concentrate on one thing at a time, slow down, there's no rush, there's plenty of time, and see it as, I run. So I that's my go-to cardio, so running on the street. Again, no technology, just going out and having a run. And I see other runners, so everyone's, you overtake some people overtake you and stuff like that. And that's how I see people in business. Everyone's on their own run, aren't they? Like, some people are better, some people are not. Some people are better trainers, some people have better gear, some people have better stamina, some people have better speed. And everyone is just, and everyone's going in a different direction. You pass someone down one street, you're going down the other street, right? And that's the way I see it. And how can you then compare yourself to someone who's moving in a complete different direction with a different pair of trainers, with a different aim to the run, that he wants to do a 100-meter sprint and you want to do a marathon? So you don't see any of that. So like you said, just keep your head down, understand why you're doing what you're doing, and just be the best you can within the time frame you're in. That's the best advice I can give to anyone, really, especially young people now. Now
it is.
Come on.
I was going to say, I can remember my the one thing that I didn't say before was adaptability, and I think I can remember, if I look back to my very first business plan when I went into business, it is totally different to what I'm doing now, like totally different. And I think I come across a lot of people that set up businesses and they've got the whole thing set up, right? This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And then they go out there and they throw it to the market and it doesn't stick, and it is not responding like they thought it would. So they keep on pushing harder and harder, or they go, oh, it hasn't worked. I can remember in my first week of business, I hit the road and just met with as many people as I possibly could. And within a week of being in my business, I said to my husband, I've got this wrong. I've got to change. I've got to change my offering and do it this way. And he said, Amy, you're insane. You've been in business for a week. Give yourself time. And I said, no, a week of meetings has shown me that I've come to this the way that I thought that people needed it, but enough people have told me that it's not the right way. And having that confidence to be able to go, like, it's okay. Like, I didn't have to get it right the first time. Just change it. Like, adapt, constantly adapt, so that you're meeting the needs of your customers, not of the needs of you. So that's the other big thing.
Can I make express something that I've never done? In any business I've set up, I've never done a business plan. And I know this is not your standard advice from anyone in business, but I've almost just said, I'm going to start moving. Let me just work it out. It's not perfect, but it's something. And then, like you said, pivot, adapt, based on, the little thing I knew at the start of my business. Then from 21 years down the line, I look back and I think so many times it's just got changed again. Markets, because I'm in home technology. So imagine technology, how much technology has changed over the last 20 years. When we started selling TVs, they were the big back TVs, the CRT type, the ones that we grew up with, those, right? That you need 3 people to lift, right through to super slim, paper thin TVs, right? That are so smart that like a computer fits into them. That, if we didn't do that, when I started my business, there was no Google as such. There was no, there was Yellow Pages, there was a fax machine, there was a door to water. You remember these things, Amy, right? So
showing our age.
I know. But do you understand? And then I'm like, if then I realize that the whole transition, and it's so brilliant now growing up at this age, because we've seen both sides, haven't we? We've seen the analog days of growing up, where we only knew our friends that came and called for us. We could go and spend all day out, and our parents didn't even care where we were.
Yeah, they didn't know where we went. There was no way of them finding us, really.
As long as you came home for dinner, you're okay.
That's right. Pack your bags, go out and see at sunset.
Exactly. And as long as you didn't annoy them too much, they would leave you alone as well.
Yeah.
And I remember my mum, so I remember like my kids now, so similar age to yours, my son is 10 and my daughter's 15. So you were braver, you did a 2-year gap. We had to have a 4-year gap. So when my son sometimes says, "Oh, Mum, I'm bored," she'd be like, "Oh, okay, so what about some painting? What about some colouring? Then get a jigsaw out." With me, I'm like, "Well, be bored. It's fine. It's good to be bored. You might learn something, right?" So then his brain stops working. But it's funny because if I went to my mum when I was 10 years old and said, "Mum, I'm bored," she'd be like, "So what are you telling me for? I'll do something then."
My mum probably would have said, "Well, there's washing to be done." Grab the vacuum the floors. You never said you were bored, or else I gave you something to do when it wasn't anything good.
and then it was just a case of being a parent, wasn't it? When we talk about parents, I see my parents as parents, so real parents, so that hard work, grafted hard, and only thought of us about everything. And then I think, shit, I'm a parent now, and I don't even see myself as a dad, So I have so much fun in terms of going out with friends. We go on holidays together, and then we go out drinking on nights out. We go and watch football and stuff. But then when we come home, and then I'm with my kids, I like to play as well. When things have to be done, then I'm like, okay, dad hat on now. We need to get stuff done. But the rest of the time, I don't want to be that structure of that father role figure where you look up to dad, everything is respected by dad.
Yeah.
In terms of the amount of times my kids tell me to shut up, it's brilliant. Like, Dad. If I said that to my dad, I would have got a slap.
But I mean, the thing is, probably if people asked our kids, though, they'd still say that we were dads, or that we're nowhere near as cool as we think we are. Like, we think we're cool parents, but in our kids' eyes, we're still parents.
In my eyes, I'm cool, and that's the main thing.
I like to pretend like I'm a cool mum, but I always say to my daughter, like, your friends think that I'm a cool mum, huh? Like, out of the group, I'm the cool mum, yeah? We can only hope.
We're always asking for confirmation from our kids now, right?
Yeah, because we know it's probably not the truth.
Now, if we project forward, Amy, with how you see things and your forward perspective, for the next 5 years to be amazing for you, what needs to happen?
So I can tell you right now, the next 5 years.
We're not talking about good. We're not talking about realistic. We're talking about amazing.
Yep. So I can tell you right now, the next 5 years are going to be amazing. There's not a doubt in my mind they are going to be amazing. And I'll tell you why. Because even the change I've seen in the last 2 years around emotional intelligence has been huge. I can remember as recent as 2 years ago, so many people saying to me, "Don't call it emotional intelligence, Amy. This world is not ready to hear emotional intelligence." There was a good 6-month period that I ummed and ahed and even tested out taking the words emotional intelligence out of what I do. And after 6 months, I said to myself, no, they are wrong. The world is ready to hear about this. And the changes that I'm seeing happen at the moment is exciting. Like, it's seriously exciting. The world is ready to look at each other and at themselves in a different way. I think what has happened to the world in the last 18 months has been devastating. Everything about COVID is so bad, but there is that silver lining that has made us all stop in that crazy busy world that we've been in, and where we've been so driven by the process and by the dollar signs and by the end result, that I think we've finally realized just how important the human aspect is. And I know that in the next 5 years, we're going to see that grow even more. We're just going to constantly see it. And I'm seeing it now, just the amount of businesses, the amount of CEOs, the amount of people that it would never, ever have been interested in emotional intelligence 2 or 3 years ago, that are genuinely coming to me now and saying, I get it. Like, it's taken me a while, but I get now how important this is. So I see the next 5 years in really, really the world starting to embrace it, but not just embrace it, really owning it and starting to look inside themselves and take ownership and responsibility for who they are and the impact that they're having and what they're achieving. So that's what I see in the next 5 years. For me, the role that I'll play in that is really taking that message to as many people as I can. And look, that's why I wrote my book at the end of last year. Actually, it was mid last year. I had no intention to. It wasn't on my immediate plan to write a book. But I think when COVID happened, there were so many people around the world that I was receiving messages from that I wanted to help. And I simply could not help them all. So I thought, how can I help as many people as I possibly can, as fast as I can? And that is through a book. So that book's out there now. And I love how many people it's reaching and how many people it's helping. For me, it will be tailoring that message to certain pockets, because emotional intelligence is huge. So what will make it amazing is being able to really drill it down into certain pockets and certain niches to be able to say, okay, this is what it is overall, but to make this group of people amazing at what they do and who they are, I'll write something specifically for them. So it's about, now people are embracing emotional intelligence. Now it's time for me to take it a level deeper. And once they've got that overarching, okay, I get it, I'm starting to play in that, how do I keep on giving them the opportunity to go deeper and deeper and deeper until they start to nail it? And for me, it makes it amazing if I've helped those people, but also the learning in it for me is huge, absolutely huge. Yeah. So that is what is going to make the next 5 years amazing.
There you go. And almost from exactly what you said about your book, that wasn't even in the pipeline and that happened. So imagine what's not in the pipeline that's still happening, and what doors that you've not even seen yet that you have to walk through, and you're like, I didn't even see that. So that's, I think, always another hugely exciting. And you know what we mentioned about business plans earlier, that almost if you just get stuck on the rigidity of being, heading in a certain, actually having a goal, you don't take in the journey, and you don't say, actually, what I want to do now is I'm on this journey and I've seen this beautiful mountain. I'm just going to sit here for a few moments and watch that. I know it's not, in my head, I have to get to that, and I don't want to miss that though. And it's ability to do that, right? And as entrepreneurs, COVID has just shown that we are the best at adapting and adapting and adapting again, and that's our skill, not seeing the hurdle, but seeing it, but getting over it, under it, side of it, or pushing the whole thing out of the way and just working out our own way, right? And that's, I think, I say the whole business of recovery is going to come through entrepreneurs, because I think that's the way we think anyway. So brilliant.
I think too, that comes back to us really understanding our purpose. And if we think that our purpose is to do with an action or to do with a process or to do with a product, then we haven't got a purpose. Like, a purpose is an emotional feeling. Everything in this world was created to satisfy an emotional need, a human need. So every single person's purpose should be a feeling. It should be an emotion. To me, it's, how will people feel interacting with you or working with you? Or once you achieve your goals or what you set out to achieve, how will you feel? So I think if you keep your purpose and you keep your goals based on that emotional driver and how you will feel and how others will feel, that gives you the opportunity to pivot as much as you possibly can, because it doesn't matter what gets thrown into the picture, whether it's COVID, and there will be something else that's unexpected that will happen. COVID is not the only thing that will get thrown at us. But I think if we have the ability to stop and remember, what is my purpose? What is it? What is that emotional driver I'm trying to achieve to give other people and to feel myself? Then you can pivot with anything and know how to still get there with the new environment.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Amy, there's a couple more questions I'd like to ask you just to get a deeper understanding about how you think. Okay, so now we're going to forward project 100 years into the future. Now, we've reached the last moments of your life. Now, you don't have enough energy to speak, but you have enough energy to write down 3 words. And now these 3 words have resonated with you all your life, and you hope by sharing them, they'll resonate with the people that are listening and help them on their journey. What would those 3 words be for you and why?
Before I say the words, gosh, I'd be so happy if I lived to 142. That's the first thing. I would love that. But I think I would actually, it's only 2 words that I would say, and it would be own it. Like, I think just to me, there is so much power in owning it, in owning who you are, owning how you feel, owning the impact that you've had, owning what you've left on this world. Own it just summarizes it to me, to really question yourself and go internally. I think we spend too much of our lives at the time looking for external answers or waiting for other people to give us the answers, when really it's our responsibility. We're not victims here. We are actually the drivers. So own it. Yeah.
And that sits really aside to one thought process that really sits deeply with me all the time, which is you are 100% responsible for your life. And that's it, and it's the same sentiment. So that it sits with me really well, because I strongly believe that everything's in our hands, and we have the solutions and the answer if we go quiet and just listen to ourselves, because we generally can find the solutions, right? Okay, now this podcast is called Bigger Than the Hustle, and right now you're bigger than the world. So I've got a microphone and I've connected it up to 7.58 billion people on this planet. They can all hear you, they all understand you, they're all awake, there's no language barriers, they're all conscious, and they're all listening to what you've got to say. If I can hand this over to you for the next 30 seconds, what would your message be to the world?
My message would be to slow down and enjoy the ride. Get to know yourself, get to know the people around you. Don't set ridiculously high expectations or measures of success that are totally irrelevant. Like, really understand the core thing is understanding what makes you happy. And as corny as that sounds, success is being happy. And that doesn't matter what you own or where you live or what you drive. Some of the richest people in the world are really unhappy. And some of the poorest people in the world are some of the happiest people you'll ever meet. Success is purely happiness.
100% agree with that. And what was interesting, Amy, just exactly what you said there, because every part of it makes sense, in terms of happiness, in terms of doing things with purpose. And then when you, like you mentioned earlier in the podcast, when you do things with purpose, when you have a strong enough why, the how just sorts itself out, doesn't it? The way it's actually going to come into the world. So that's amazing. And at this juncture, Amy, I'd really like to thank you. So now I've had a really enjoyable conversation with you. We've had some laughs and we've gone into some detail about what you do. And I'm really thankful for the way you come into the world, you found your purpose, and the way you try and share that with the people around you and your universe. I think it's brilliant. Hopefully this conversation reaches the people it needs to reach to help them on their journey. And then I will be putting all your details on the show notes. If there's anyone who wants to reach out to Amy after hearing this conversation, please do so. I'm sure she'll be happy to have a conversation with, in whichever way that you want to come. And if there's any help that you need, I'm sure she'll be ready to help and serve you as well. So just before we go, Amy, is there anything else you'd like to say?
I would just like to say thank you so much for having me. It's been my absolute honor. And I think, helping to get the message out there of emotional intelligence to as many people as we can is just so powerful. So thank you for having me. For everybody that's out there, I would absolutely reiterate that. Please contact me. I'm more than happy to answer questions, to listen, to bounce things off whenever you like. So, don't be shy.
Yes, and Amy's not shy anyway, so you don't be shy, so you'll mirror each other, right? There you go. So
That's
thank
right.
you so much, Amy. I know it's late for you now, so you go and enjoy the rest of the evening now. So just before we go, I'm Bhavik. I'm the host of Bigger Than the Hustle, and just a few thoughts to leave you with. Big energy leads to big thoughts. Big thoughts lead to big ideas. Big ideas lead to big actions, and big actions lead to a big life. So keep thinking big. Until next week, goodbye.
Be kind to people, help people. There's no such thing as competition because there's only one you,